He saw it filled with life, not with dead atmosphere, not with just earth and air, but filled with living things, beautiful things, wonderful things, that surrounding man and all of his knowledge and thoughts and his ignorance also is a world of living things that he can't even see, a world he doesn't even believe in, but a world which affects him every day, a world which moves in upon his moods, upon his attitudes, a world that punishes him when he is selfish, a world that praises him when he is right. And he will recognize that in a mysterious way there are forces in that world which will guide him to his proper destiny if he will keep the rules. Each individual must live the life if he would know the doctrine. And when he does so, he realizes that the life that he is going to contact is not simply energy. It is not just a thought floating around. It isn't even a mentation in the mind of God. When he keeps the rules, space is with him. Time is with him. Eternity is with him. Little by little, the purpose for himself is fulfilled, and the time will come when he likewise will be a unit of conscious energy in the great fields of universal life. So we all have not only this type of thing, but we also have to look around us to see what's happening. We look around and we see today the problem of air pollution. With that air pollution, thousands, millions of things die. This air pollution is against the rules. Therefore, nature will never support it. And nature will continue to punish it until it corrects its own mistake. Nature will never permit evil to survive. It will never permit the wrong to win. There will be moments of apparent victory, but they will be followed by years and centuries of terrible defects and disasters. Everything that we have around us lives in a sea of truth, lives in a vast organism that is based upon infinite wisdom and infinite love. These are the ruling powers. The universe is not neutral. It is not simply space. It is not things moving, floating around in a vacuum. It is not formulas that can be put into letters and numbers on a scientific blackboard. Space is alive. Everything that exists is alive. And while we are growing on one level, somewhere else another thing is growing. While we are adding to the wisdom of our own mind, something else is enriching every cell in our bodies. Everything is living and growing. And when the individual interferes with growth, he commits probably the most terrible of all sins. When he tries to block growth, or becomes indifferent to it, or denies it, in that moment, he places himself in the position of being punished. Now, punishment is not going to be eternal damnation. Punishment is not going to be something which is irreparable. But patience and virtue must take the place before punishment is completed. Punishment is merely an effect, the cause of which is wrong. As long as that effect is wrong, the consequences must be wrong. And what are the basic rules of this mysterious being, this infinite good one, whom we all worship under one form or another, or most people recognize under the general term of God? What is the law of this being? The law of this being is love. The law of this being is that in all matters, an infinite tenderness guides erring life back to its source and forward to its perfection. These things the ancients recognized. We don't recognize them very much anymore. But when something goes wrong and a great disaster occurs, there's a reason. A disaster is never something that is an accident. And no disaster is such that it is irreparable damage. There is nothing in life that is real that can be destroyed. The lowest, most imperfect of all entities must have its growth, must have its place, and must have its chance to win. And it is the rule of nature under God that all things shall win. There is no loss. There can never be. There is only delay. There is only a moment of pause in what might otherwise be a great and glorious mission. So Boethius went forward and went out and paid to the state the debt which it had created. But he no longer feared the state. He no longer feared the world, for he knew that the world itself was good. And these little tyrants who arise live for a day and disappear. And in the great passage of things, each of us, in our own way, must discover our own eternity. Each of us must realize for himself the eternality of the scheme and plan to which he belongs. We must begin to realize that we were not born when we come here. We do not die when we go. Everything in life goes on in life. There is no dead spot anywhere in space. Everything is filled with life, growing, unfolding. And as we look out upon it, we can see as in a meadow the vast flowering and the vast fruiting of a great vegetation. And over it rules Flora, the goddess of the harvest, the goddess of the flowers, the goddess of the herbs. She represents the very principle of the values and powers which the plant kingdom embody. In other words, the plant kingdom is a being growing up. It is not a place, it is not a series of wild seeds that we know nothing about, or of plants that die and never come back. The plant kingdom is an entity, a living thing. It has its comings and its goings, but its eternity is never questioned. It will go on, and if it is abused and perverted and corrupted, it will remain to correct these conditions until they are corrected. And anything which consciously and intentionally destroys these growths or tries to frustrate them will find that his own ignorance becomes a terror to him. The individual who tries to kill something is an individual who will then become frightened that he himself will die. And he was wrong when he thought he killed. He was wrong when he thinks he will die. All things are part of a plan so much bigger than we are that we can't even contemplate them. But this greater reality is, in a sense, our only security. It is the one thing that cannot fail. Politics may rise and fall. They are also entities. And we find that someone talks about the dangers of the capitalistic system. The capitalistic system is an entity. The Greeks and Romans knew it under the name of Pluto, the god of wealth. And the god of wealth is also a divine being. And the god of wealth has to grow and outgrow its own possession of wealth by outgrowing it through all the creatures that it has fashioned. Therefore, wherever wealth is, it must be outgrowing itself. It must be changing into something better. Because it is alive, it has a continuity of consciousness, and it can never rest until wealth ceases to be a danger to any living thing. Everything is growing towards its own perfection and its own immortality. As we go a little further into this rather complicated situation, we realize that all over this earth there are religions, many different faiths, many different beliefs, so many gods, so many creeds, so many paths that wind and wind. But religion finally is one being, and that one being is what nations of the world have called God. Religion is the lifeblood of God. It is part of this tremendous power whose body nature is in God the soul. So this is a being that we deal with. Religions are evolving. People are evolving. Institutions are evolving. Everything that is born grows. And when its maximum growth has been achieved, it slowly disappears to give rise to a new embodiment of itself in something higher and better.